If you're still awake, you've already crossed beyond midnight. I lived in a coastal city in Morocco, a small, quiet town on the ocean where the sound of the waves was part of the house's background noise. In early November, an unknown Instagram account started sending me short clips, videos of our sea, our beach, the camera shaking as if the person filming was running. In every clip, the same sentence appeared on the screen before the video was abruptly cut off. Do not mention the island. The first time, I thought it was a joke. The second, I assumed it was a promotional stunt for a short film. The third, my full name appeared on the sand, carved in large letters, with the waves touching it and pulling back. My family name was written in a way only someone who knew me long ago would recognize, the old spelling I used on forums 10 years ago. Only then did I realize this was far beyond a joke. I opened the messages to reply. The account was locked, following no one, with 0 posts. I sent, "Who are you? And what do you want?" No answer came. That night, I got a notification with a new video. The same beach, the same shaky movement, but this time the camera was pointed toward the horizon. There, on the waterline, a small dark island appeared, an island that shouldn't be visible from the shore, especially since we all know there isn't any island close enough to be seen with the naked eye. Then the sentence appeared, "Do not mention the island." The next morning, I asked the old fishermen at the port. They laughed and said that clear weather makes distant things look near, but one of them, an old man with a wool cap and eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they should, did not smile. He said, "We had one old rule. Don't speak about the island to the west and don't point at it. The sea that lulls you doesn't like to be named." I told him, "But there is no island." He shrugged. "Don't ask the sea to prove anything to you." That evening, the account sent me a longer video. The waves were unnervingly calm. From the corner of the frame, a small, inflatable boat appeared, tied to a rock with a rope. The camera moved closer. On the boat was an old, faceless cloth doll. In front of the doll, a white envelope with the name of my cousin, Elias. I opened a chat with Elias immediately, but he didn't answer. His last online status was 4 hours earlier. I called him. The phone rang, then cut off. A minute later, another video arrived, a human hand picking up the envelope and waving it toward the camera. The hand was wearing a silver ring I knew very well, the ring Elias always wore. I went to my uncle's house. They said Elias had left at sunset and never came back. I told them about the videos. Some accused me of exaggerating, others just froze in silence. The old man with the wool cap was standing at the door, as if he had been waiting for me. He said, "If you go, don't say the island's name. And if you read anything that says, 'Do not mention the island,' read it exactly as it is. Don't add or remove a single letter." I asked him, "Should I go alone?" He replied, "The second rule, don't stay alone. But whoever is with you must not speak to you unless you see land. The sea doesn't like chatter." At midnight, I took a small boat from the harbor. The sea was flat like glass. Above me, the moon drifted behind a thin, wandering cloud. I mounted my phone on a small holder and started recording. One part of me wanted evidence, the other part wanted witnesses in case I never came back. After roughly 200 meters, the island's silhouette appeared exactly as it did in the videos. A low, dark mass, like a secret rising from the deep, just to die in the air. I didn't say its name. I didn't describe its shape out loud. I just looked at it. On the dark sand, I saw the inflatable boat and the faceless doll. The white envelope was gone. In its place lay something else, a silver ring that sent a chill through my fingers. Just from looking at it, Elias's ring. On the dark sand, I dragged the boat up to shore. The ground was damp and gripping, but not mud, something between sand and dead skin. The faceless cloth doll sat as if leaning on the air itself. When I touched it, it shifted with an unnatural lightness, lighter than paper. On its chest were 2 tied black threads and a third knot that hadn't been tightened yet. There was also a needle stuck into the fabric. From inside the doll, something seemed to flutter. Not a heartbeat, but a distant sound, like someone calling from beneath the water. Do not mention the island. The words didn't come from my phone. They didn't come from my thoughts. They came from the direction of the sea behind me. I turned, saw nothing, but I heard the splash of water that never happened. I picked up the ring and put it in my pocket. And instead of saying Elias's name, as any normal person would, I remembered the rule. I said quietly, "Whoever is lost to the sea, I am here." I didn't expect an answer, but the doll shuddered once and the third knot loosened on its own. The thread slackened, the fabric opened slightly, and something small and metallic fell out from inside it. A memory card. I turned on the memory card using an adapter on my phone. It held 5 audio files, each named with a number. I started with the first, 1812. Elias and I are on the beach. We saw the inflatable boat and the faceless doll. Someone reminded us, "Don't mention the island." Elias laughed and said its name out loud. The recording cut off abruptly. I opened the second file, 1820. When he said the name, the sea went silent, as if the waves were listening. A bird screamed in the dark, then stopped too. The doll flipped over by itself and started dragging backward like something inside it was pulling. The third file, 1837. Elias followed the doll, and I told him we should go back. The wind clapped once and every sound stopped. I saw a shadow rising out of the sea, tall, not river and not human, like a nail being pulled out of wood. Elias said the name a second time. The audio shattered like glass. The fourth file was less clear, 1902. If anyone hears this recording, don't mention the island. Don't say its name. Don't write it. Don't claim you saw it. When you acknowledge its existence, you become part of its land, and the land demands its debt. The fifth file was a faint whisper, 1913. He walked into the water, but he wasn't swimming. He was walking. The sea turned solid under his feet. Every step left a print, and every print glowed like fish eyes. I'm holding him with my gaze. I can't say his name. If I say his name, he'll turn around, and if he turns, my face will become a face with no face. I lifted my eyes and found footprints on the shore. Not recent, not old. They had the age of a shadow. Each footprint filled with water and emptied again, as if the beach were breathing through them. I followed the trail to a low rock at the water's edge. There, the steps stopped, as if whoever walked had climbed onto the surface of the sea and continued on. At that moment, my phone buzzed, a new message from the unknown account. If you want him back, the debt must be paid. Everyone who mentioned it must pay, I replied. What is the debt? The response came instantly. 3 names. Do not mention the island. Mention them instead. Then another video arrived. The same beach, the same shaky camera, but this time I saw myself in it. It was me, right now, bending near the doll, and no one was filming me. Yet the image was moving. I sat beside the doll. My mind tried to find an exit. Maybe it was a dark prank. Maybe Elias had arranged everything. But the ring was heavy in my pocket. The recordings came from a phone I didn't recognize, and the sea was waiting like a hungry animal that had realized its meal was close. I wrote to the account, "Who are the 3? The reply came, "Any 3 who know. But they must agree to speak in the island's place. Every time one of them says the name instead of you, your debt decreases a little." I closed the app. I thought of many names, but I knew that if I dragged someone into this, even unintentionally, I would be feeding them to the sea in my name. I pulled my hand out of my pocket and decided to try something else. I would take the doll with me and leave. When I lifted the doll, I felt its weight suddenly double. From inside it came a faint ticking, like a clock turning time upside down. The needle stuck in its fabric glimmered with the color of the sea at dawn. I said out loud, staring into the darkness, "I'm not going to mention anything. I have no names to give. If there has to be a debt, let it fall on me alone." I didn't think the sea would understand, but it understood. The water stretched suddenly, as if small waves were crawling out from under the sand. The tide rose and surrounded my ankles. A notification arrived, a live stream from the unknown account. I opened it. A black screen appeared, and a single distant voice spoke, distorted but still understandable. The debt divides. 3 nights. Each night takes something from you. On the first, the name. On the second, the face. On the third, the voice. If you remain standing until the end of the 3rd night without speaking the name, what was taken returns, and the one we took returns as well. But if you fail, you become like the doll, present, but with no name, no face, no voice. You learn not to mention the island. Then the stream ended. I returned with the boat. As soon as I entered my room, I noticed that on my ID card lying on the table, the name field had been blurred out. The letters hadn't completely vanished, but they had melted together, sticking to one another until they were unreadable. On my phone, the names in my contacts had changed. My name, saved on my friends' phones, had turned into strange symbols. I opened Instagram. My account had no username. Every message where I had ever written my name had turned into a black square. I tried to resist by proving myself to myself. I wrote my name 10 times on a sheet of paper. Every time I wrote the first letter, the ink stretched on its own and ruined the shape. The paper filled with black lines like a spider's web, and in the center was a white gap where my name was supposed to be. I decided to sleep. Maybe a dream would explain or soften things. But in the dream, I saw Elias standing on an unbreaking surface of the sea. He was looking at the horizon without eyes. And when I called out to him, without saying his name, his whole body turned instead of his head. His body twisted like wet cloth. He raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned and found a faceless doll standing in the corner of my room. I woke up at 3 in the morning. The doll was on my desk, and I was sure I had left it in the bag. The needle was no longer on its chest. On the second day, my face in the mirror had shifted slightly to the left, like a bad reflection in warped glass. I've had a small mole above my right eyebrow since childhood. It was gone. In the old photos on my phone, my face had changed. The features were there, but stretched, like a branch dragged through fast water. My mother called, "Son, I saw your picture on WhatsApp. Why are you using such a weird filter?" I didn't know what to say. I answered, "Just a bit of distortion." She said, "God guide you away from these nonsense tricks. Go see a doctor." And when she started to say my name, the call cut off. Not from her network, it literally cut off. The word collapsed into static, as if the wire itself had been severed. I went back to the beach before sunset. The old man with the wool cap was there. He looked at my face for a long moment, then said, "The night of the name has passed. Face and voice are left. Shall I continue with you?" I told him. The second rule said I shouldn't stay alone. But the sea doesn't like chatter. He smiled for the first time since I'd met him. Many men have died from too much talking. Then he walked beside me without a word. On the sand, the doll was waiting. This time it wasn't just faceless, it had no shadow. The sentence on its chest had changed. Mention instead of mentioning. I didn't understand. The old man picked up the needle from the ground. He said, "Every curse has a tiny puncture. If you stick it in the right place, the blood returns to its blood." I asked him out, "Where is the right place?" He answered, "Where the sin began." I looked at the sea. The sin began when Elias saw the island and said its name. But for me, the sin began when I opened the messages and didn't stop, when I let curiosity take the shape of a boat. At night, I was used to praying with words I knew, but this time, every time I tried to speak, the letters canceled themselves in my throat. I felt that my voice no longer belonged to me. Dawn was approaching. This was the night of the face, and if it passed, the night of the voice would begin. I wrote on a sheet of paper, "I choose to pay my debt alone." Then I placed the paper in the doll's pocket and drove the needle into the 3rd knot, the one that had come undone the night before. The doll trembled. The air grew heavier. I heard dripping sounds from the bathroom. When I entered, the mirror was covered with thick steam even though the water was cold. And slowly, a sentence appeared on the fog, as if a hand were writing from the other side. The name has partially returned. The face will return if you do not speak. On the 3rd of November, before midnight, my voice began to fail me. The phone rang. It was my uncle. His voice shattered. We found Elias's boat, punctured, tied with a rope, but we didn't find him. I wanted to say, I'm close. 3 nights, and I'll bring him back. But what came out was a whisper only my heart could hear. I opened Instagram. The unknown account had started another live stream. This time, the image was clear. Elias was standing on the waterline, a short distance away from the island. He was facing me now, but without features. The account wrote beneath the stream, "In 17 minutes, the tide begins. If you speak its name, his voice becomes ours. If you stay silent, his voice returns. His face returns, and the sea will remember the gift." I sat on the floor near the window overlooking the sea. The doll was on my knees, the needle in my hand. The old man stood in the doorway. He didn't enter. He said in a voice barely audible, "The one that mustn't be named." People desire it because of their curiosity, but to quiet your curiosity, you need something gentle. I asked him with my eyes. He said, "Name the ones you love with your silence, not with your voice." I closed my eyes. The faces of those I loved passed before me. My mother's face, Elias's laughter, a small light in my childhood room, the smell of salt on my father's hand when he used to return from the harbor. In silence, I named them, without voice, without letters. The stream began counting down. 2 minutes. Each passing second made the air heavier. Outside, a single towering wave was approaching like a city rising. I opened my eyes. I drove the needle into the palm of my hand. I wanted real blood, not thread. A drop of blood fell onto the doll's fabric. I pulled out the needle and tied the thread on its chest into a firm, solid knot. On the stream, Elias's body trembled, as if something inside him had just been fastened back into place. There was a wild urge on my tongue to say the forbidden name. Not because I wanted it, but because sometimes fear pushes you to destroy everything, just so it will end. I felt the word forming, its first letter like a wave against rock, the second like the smell of old algae, the third like the whistle of wind between ropes. I pressed my fingers against my mouth hard enough to taste iron. The old man said, "1 minute left." I shook my head. Outside, soft knocks began tapping on the window glass. 3 knocks, then stillness. 3 knocks, then silence. Each knock chipped something away from my will. 8 seconds remained before the stream would cut off. Inside myself, I spoke the name of one person only, not the island's name. I said Elias, but silently, and the blood on the doll stretched into a thin line and drew a dot on its chest, like an eye opening. 1 second before the stream ended, the screen went dark, the stream cut off, and in the same moment, the doll slipped from my knees and fell heavily to the floor. From inside, it came the sound of a real breath, one long inhale, and then stillness. In the morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it. Elias was standing there, soaked, shivering, without his ring. His eyes were there, but they didn't focus. His face was there, but it needed someone to remind it how to be used. His voice came out like a weak breeze. Cold. He didn't mention anything about the previous night. He didn't know how he got here. All he said was that he kept hearing the waves from the inside. The old man sat on the chair across from us, lighting a cigarette he didn't smoke. He said, "The sea gave us a gift, but the price still remains. You didn't speak the name. That's the only reason it let him go, but the name will not die. Every time you speak about it, the debt awakens again." I asked him, "How do we make sure we never mention it?" He said, "Learn silence." Whenever you feel the urge to talk about it, say, "Do not mention the island." Weeks passed. Elias slowly returned to himself. But some things never went back to normal. Our old family photos on everyone's phones now showed a foggy blot on the horizon instead of the sky. Every video that contained the sea, even the very old ones, now produced a faint whisper at certain seconds. "Do not mention the island." The unknown Instagram account disappeared, but whenever I opened the app at night, I was taken to a blank white page with the same message. Sometimes I caught a brief introductory stream, just a few seconds long, the same beach, the same angle with no name at all. One day, while I was walking near the beach, I saw a little girl piling up sand. I asked her, "What are you making?" She said, "I'm building an ISL." She stopped. She looked at me as if a huge word had gotten stuck in her throat. Then she said, "I'm building something." I smiled at her and walked on. Yesterday, I received a physical letter, no stamp, no sender address. Inside was a printed photograph, a faceless doll with a needle stuck into it. 3 knots tied around it. Under the photo, a sentence written in handwriting unlike anything I'd seen before. "The debt can fall forever if you accept one rule. Do not mention the island." Then a finer line beneath it. "And if you must tell the story, tell everything, except its name." You may ask now, why tell the story at all? Isn't telling it a form of mentioning? I tell it because absolute silence tempts those who have never tasted danger. I tell it so that if you ever receive a message from an account with no posts, you'll know the sentence is not a marketing trick, and that there are things in the sea that do not like names. I tell it because the only rule in our town has returned after we abandoned it. Do not mention the island. There is one thing I haven't told. Last night at 3:13, I heard knocking on the window. 3 knocks. I slowly pulled the curtain aside. There was no one there. But on the outside of the glass, a thin line of sea salt had been used to write a single word, half erased by the rain. I didn't try to read it. I didn't open the window. I only wiped the glass with the sleeve of my shirt and whispered with the voice I had left, "Do not mention the island."